Hello, welcome to our Ask Me Anything series that we are kicking off as part of our 90th anniversary celebration of the School of Information and Library Science. My name is Lori Haight, and I serve as the Career Services Coordinator here, and today we have 3 faculty members joining us. We have collected some questions already, but there is a way, if you have a question you'd like to add, at the bottom of your Zoom screen in the Q&A, feel free to type in a question and we'll get to as many of those questions as time allows. So now I'd like to introduce our first guest today, Dr. Ron Bergquist, Teaching Associate Professor, UNC School of Information and Library Science. Hello.
Hi.
So we're going to get started. We have a few questions already in the queue.
Okay.
So first off, what has been your favorite class to teach here at SILS?
That would be hard to say because I frankly enjoyed every single one of them. And they have different reasons for being taught. And so they have a different student cohort and they have kind of different outcomes. But if I was pinned down to one particular class being the favorite class, I think it would have to be the information tools class, the one that I was asked to teach when I was a doctoral student, and I've taught it ever since. And I think the reason that that class would be the favorite is, one, it's a class in which we learn about the underlying structures that we use every day in information tools. And the things that we do without even thinking and stuff just happens, we spend some time to think about why they happened. And in some cases, we go a little bit deeper to actually make things happen. What it is to strip away the veneer of the opacity of it's too hard to know and realize that actually it's not that hard to know. There are basic structures that you can sense that will replicate themselves over time in different ones. So if you get the basic grasp of command argument value, that same understanding will carry you through every type of programming you ever have to do from then on. It's just different syntaxes. Also, I get to meet the widest variety of people. People who just stumble into it because they needed a class at that hour. People who had to take it for their master's program, which was my case in 1997. I had to take it. And then people who want to take it. And then in it, you will have people who are way more skilled in one particular area than I am. And you'll have people who are not even sure they know what a keyboard is. And in the end, I think what we end up with is people have a relative comfort level in using these tools and a better sense of self and self-confidence in moving forward. So over the years, I've had a lot of people flow through there. The current president of the SILS Alumni Association was a student in that class in 2006, over and over and over again. And so I often get to see SILS students at the very dawn of their development. And then I'll see them later when they graduate, and I'll see them later when they graduate from grad school. I'll see them later when they're moving through the executive world, et cetera. And so I think that would be it, the information tools class.
How did your time as a student here at SILS help you prepare to teach classes as a faculty member?
Well, one, I got a master class in role models on how to do it well. Some of the people I took classes, let me just back that up again. Some of the people I took classes from were terrible, terrible, but good. I mean, that's, bad examples is good advice anyway. But I did take classes from absolute spectacularly good role models. Evelyn Daniel, I would have to say, really struck home with me in the way she handled the class and the way she got us to think. Paul Solomon is another one in which he would give us a structure for a semester-long class, and you'd look at the structure, and then there'd be nothing else, nothing else. And we just went on and said, what are we supposed to do in this? When are we supposed to turn something in? Are we going to have a test? No, it was up to you to make of it what you would. And that was enlightening. So I think as a student, I think I got a sense of what the user needs, the user in this case being the student. So when I was given the opportunity to teach a class, I was terrible that first semester because I had like months to prepare. And but I think I was able to understand the other side of the podium and what it was that they needed to know without being condescending or smart alecky or anything like that. It's just that there are things that one needs to think about what they need and direct them to what they need. So I think just having been on that side in SILS helped me out. So I had just really good instructors when I was a master's student, and I think it really helped me a lot.
How would you say academia is like the armed services? Which is your background for those of you who are joining us and may not know that?
So 26 plus years in the military before I just, came back to school because my wife thought I was getting bored being retired. So I came back to school. They're similar in that they have an organizational structure, but they're different in the sense of purpose within it. This would be my perception. I don't know that everybody else would share it, but I would say in the realm of academia, especially at this level of academia in a major international and national research institution, it's more individualistic. The researchers have individual questions they're doing. They are laser focused on what they're individually doing. They will certainly are great colleagues, and they will absorb everybody else into collegiate things, and everybody works really well together. But at heart, I think it's an individual challenge moving forward. Whereas in the service, it's a bunch of individuals that come together, and the ethos very rapidly is understood that you are an interchangeable part. You're valuable and interchangeable. In fact, you're priceless. But you're there to be somebody who is supported by and supports other people with you. So it is the organization itself. It is the task itself that is important. So you would end up doing things you didn't expect to do with people you didn't expect to do them, but you all had that same understanding of this is what I need to do. There's a painting on the wall at the Pentagon, a really large painting, and it shows a soldier or something like that, and he's praying to God, and basically it says, "Take me, God, let me do it." And that was the attitude. So you saw, unfortunately, the tragedy in Kabul, Afghanistan, in the past 2 weeks, one of the two Marine women who was killed had that picture of her holding a baby. And both those Marine women, that wasn't their primary job. Their primary job was something else. I know one of them was a supply technician. But this needed to be done, and they wanted to do it. They wouldn't have been anywhere else in the world except there. And I can just remember when times were tough, it was sometimes hard to tell people, no, you can't go and do the hard work. We need you to do this. So the difference, I think, is just that sense of self and focus in the world of academia, and that sense of self and focus in the collective in the armed services. So that would be, to me, the distinction. I thought it was quite interesting that, kind of egoistic. I'm kind of proud of where I got in my service time. And I find that one of my colleagues at the academic dean's level outranks me by 2 ranks. The associate dean at the School of Nursing is an Army Major General. Good for her. Damn.
What's your favorite part about inviting alumni back into the classroom?
Oh, just to see where they have been, just to see where they have gone. In my own personal and again, egoistic thing. I just love it when they say, stuff we heard in class actually is true. And we were able to do that. But more than anything, it was the path, the route they're taking and where they're going. And, I kind of hope that, through the course of classes, we might get to a certain level, but that's their launch point. And then they launch and they go out somewhere else. And when they come back to talk to us, they're different people, but they're the same people. They're different people in that they've had different experiences and different lives. But they're the same people in that we knew them then and we know them now. They've evolved. They're more mature. But I think it's just so great to find out, where they've been. Just this year, I've had 2 students who are in my classes who were great students when they're here, who've gone off into business and they are making doobies of money. And one of them, her company offered to pay her way through an MBA if she would just continue to work with them for a couple of years. And so she said, she thought about it and said, well, wow, I could have an MBA paid for, and I'm getting like a 6-figure a year salary, and I'll be 32 years old when that is paid back, and paid back in time, getting a 6-figure salary. And she said, I don't think that's what I want to do with my life. I think what I want to do is what I really wanted to do, and I didn't have the courage to do it earlier. And so she quit. She got off that path, and now she's a scribe in the operating room at UNC Hospitals, planning to start med school next year. And then I got a call from one in Austin, Texas, doing the same thing, and she asked me if I would give her a recommendation because she decided she really wanted to go to med school and really wants to be a medical doctor. I think that's the quality of people we are blessed to be around, and hearing from them, and it just it makes it worthwhile.
I know that one of the things that we pride ourselves on at SILS is that our faculty are accessible. And so I've been trying to ask each guest on this AMA series if there are students or people in the community who have questions. Would it be okay if they email you and reach out for any additional questions they may have?
Absolutely. Give them my school email. I'm more than happy to do that. It may not be the quickest to respond, but I'll get to you.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
And so thank you very much.
You bet.
So next we have Dr. Wang, Assistant Professor, UNC School of Information and Library Science. Welcome.
Thank you, Laurie. Hi, everyone.
Sure. Hello. So I'll just say a reminder that we do have the Q&A function on our Zoom. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask that you hadn't submitted beforehand, but we do have some to start with, so we'll start there. So first off, what got you interested in this field?
I guess we're talking about information science field.
Yeah, you can define it as you see, yes.
So actually, I can talk about how I started in my undergrad. I actually didn't pick my major, or at that time I was probably too naive that I was good in physics in the high school, and so I really wanted to do a physics major in college. But then my parents say, okay, physicists are probably not the easiest to get a good job, and these guys, computers are hard, and so why not take a computer-related major? And so, okay, I said, okay. Then I basically blindly chosen a major called information security, because at that time, all the information security talks are kind of at the hype. So it's just like the AI today, but at my time, it was the security, the cryptography, and so I chose that. But later on, I realized that information security is really more about how to make the information, all kinds of interesting things, not visible, not readable, to non-authorized person, but basically to the public, which I am not a very big fan of. I am really interested in digging out the unknown and the potentially interesting things in massive amount of data. And so I'm basically going against encrypting data, but decrypting interesting knowledge from data. So I am a little bit rebelling against doing the encryption. And that's why when I had a chance to take classes like artificial intelligence, intro to artificial intelligence, and intro to machine learning, I feel I am immediately kind of lightened up. And that's when I knew that I want to pursue this field. And that was already my second year in my master's program. So I was late to the game, but I still am not regretting about the choice.
Can you talk a little bit about how your interest in machine learning and AI interacting with scientists and what that research development is?
That's a big question, actually. I mean, researchers of machine learning and AI, they are scientists themselves. But I think this question is asked by someone who is interested in how machine learning and AI will be applied to interact or help with scientists. So in my research, I started doing this kind of human bridge between a big amount of data and the domain experts who are scientists themselves. So in my graduate program, I was assisting physicians and also health informaticians in digging into large amounts of health records, large amounts of health-related tweets, and so I really imagined there will be a day when I was not the human who mines the data for the domain experts, but the domain experts can mine their data using their own knowledge and maybe just pressing a few buttons. But obviously we are still far from that nature, while all the scientific fields, I think, are accumulating a lot of data. So I think there are a lot of opportunity in what I think Dr. Javed Mustafa calls science analytics, which is basically scientists collect a lot of documents, text, or even other kinds of data like time series network, and they really want to gain knowledge from them. And how can the data mining machine learning community to have better tools, just like Excel, right? A super powered Excel that helps our scientists to gain knowledge very easily from that big data dump. And I think that's $1 billion question, or at least a very important question for us future researchers in AI and machine learning.
Do you see that as domain experts having to know more about these tools earlier in their own educational journey? Since, you know, I see what you mean about most scientists have only the domain, right? And then they've had to rely on other expertise for those tools.
I think this is like a two-way journey, both for the tools to be more user-friendly and usable. And I mean, Excel is probably not the easiest tool to use, but it is the most widely used tool to deal with data. And I think it's quite intuitive, or at least accessible. On the other hand, our scientists or just junior graduate or undergraduate students, more and more, you can say, data literacy, but maybe also analytics literacy can be built into their training, so that when we talk about any kinds of so-called sophisticated AI models, it's almost as commonplace as talking about what is the mean of the data? What is the standard deviation of this column? As standard as that, then I think that will greatly reduce the kind of the mental load of using tools. So it's always, I guess, a co-training between people and tools that will improve the overall workflow.
How do you include how do you include students in your research?
I love students, and I love to work with students who share the same interest as I do. So I think there are quite a lot of channels for me to get to know students and work with students. The best thing happens when students come to me and they are interested in my research and probably read some of the papers already and maybe even bring their own ideas to me. And I actually have quite a few students doing that. Instead of me crafting a research project for the student, I guess the latter route is sometimes not as happy as the former. So I really look forward to working with students who are self-driven. And of course, we have an interest match.
One of the questions that came in says, congrats on your recent teaching award. How has your research influenced your teaching?
Research influenced my teaching. Yeah, I think they influence both. My teaching influences my research. I teach a course and I develop better understanding of the subject and probably even a paper out of it, which is what I'm actually currently writing. Research influencing teaching. So a lot of the fun activities or the anecdotes that I tell in my classes are from my research. Because unless you do something deep about the subject you teach, you probably only can repeat what the textbook says. But once you get your hands wet on the actual thing, then you will discover, okay, some of those kind of truthful things or the beautiful formulas actually have a lot of holes in it. And at that time, you will be reminded, okay, you have to pay attention that if your data looks very weird like this and this, then that formula will break down in front of you. And so watch out for that. And I guess those kind of anecdotes will not come by if I am not doing those on the detailed research. Go ahead.
What has been your favorite class to teach?
Who is asking these torturing questions? This is like asking you to pick the favorite child kind of question.
And every parent has one. Don't think no.
I have different feelings so I teach two classes mainly in SILS. One is the information retrieval class. Another one is the data mining class. I have different feelings to both. So the information retrieval class is a required class. I can interact with a very diverse host of students from very different backgrounds, and I always will be surprisingly entertained by the end of the semester presentations there. That's something that I look forward to every semester. That's the time when students will present and share what they learned throughout the semester. And usually I find them covering the material better than what I would do. So that is a very rewarding experience. And the data mining class was, well, a bit more technical and a bit more focused. I like that class because it's a seminar type. So we usually just sit on the round table and people just start chatting. I would really happy to see people. So basically, good ideas lead on to good ideas in those discussion sessions. So the format is different, and so it's just hard to pick. Sorry for dodging the answer.
This might be the last question we have time for. You're still a relatively new faculty member of SILS. How do you foresee your involvement in shaping the future of SILS and data science teaching/research of the program in the coming years?
Is it, can you repeat the question a bit more?
Sure.
It's a bit long.
How do you foresee your involvement in shaping the future of SILS and data science teaching/research of the program in the coming years?
Wow, this is a big one. So I'll do the best in my own capacity. So my plan is to ramp up maybe the enrollment of my data mining class a bit more, and then perhaps tune it towards a broader audience so that more people can join that class. And then also, I want to say in the research field, I am joining other faculty members in developing more and more data analytics and data science related projects to be able to involve more students, not only PhD students, but also maybe offering opportunities for undergrad and master's students to get involved. Yeah,
Great.
and also this morning I am talking to Gary to revive our seminar series, inviting more people coming in and giving talks. And selfishly, some of those people that I would probably invite will bring in more and more data science related vibes. And hopefully that will also contribute to some discussions about data science within SILS.
Thank you very much. So we have run out of time for your talk today, but we really appreciate you answering our questions.
Sure. And if you have more questions, send me the email. Like Ron said, I will try to reply to them as quick as possible, but give me a few days.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Our third guest today is Dr. Melanie Feinberg, Associate Professor, UNC School of Information and Library Science. Hello.
Hello.
So we have questions. I do want to remind the audience that there is a way to add questions now. If we have, as we go through the pre-recorded questions that came in, we're happy to go through as many in the Q&A as we can get to. So at the bottom of your Zoom, you should have a Q&A button that you could submit any questions that you haven't already. But we'll go ahead and get started with what has come in. How do you explain your research area to those new to information and library science?
So the way that I typically go about this is I start out by saying my focus is on the organization of information, and what that means from an information science perspective is that I study the selection, description, and arrangement of collections of things. So what's a collection of things then? And some collections of things are physical things. So a canonical example would be a physical library with physical books in it. But we can also think about collections of physical things as being the supermarket, a museum, even things like a garden of medicinal plants. All of these things are collections of physical things. I also, collections of things can also be digital things. So collections of digital things are things like Netflix, the web, Amazon. And so to me, collections of digital things are exactly the same as collections of physical things. They are, from the perspective of organization of information, all different kinds of collections of things. And then there are also collections of things that are actually data about things. And sometimes those collections of data about things are in a physical form. So we can think about the old card catalog in the library. That's a collection of data about the books in a library, in which the data is on like physical cards in a cabinet. But today that catalog is online. So that's data about things. But data about things is also your electronic health records, et cetera. So for me, there are, and now like it's almost the same thing to be talking about the selection, description, and arrangement of the supermarket and the selection and description and arrangement of any data set. So another way that I can describe my research is I study the design and implementation of data sets. Mm-hmm. And to me, saying I study the selection, description, and arrangement of collections of things, and I study the design and implementations of data sets are synonymous. But I might use one for some audiences and one for another audience.
How has your research changed over the last few years, especially while on leave from teaching?
I spent a year and a half from June 2019 until the end of December 2020 on a research fellowship at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. And while I was there, I spent most of my time working on a book, which I completed the manuscript over the summer and submitted it to my editors at MIT Press, and hopefully it will come out in the next year. The title is called Everyday Adventures with Unruly Data. And the task I set myself in that book was really to take the kinds of things that I think about in an academic way and talk about them both from a scholarly perspective and also from an everyday perspective, which is also something that I try to do in my classes a lot. So in some sense, it wasn't actually doing a lot different, but the extension of a process that had already been sort of going through for a number of years, but really trying to be general and accessible in talking about the fundamental concepts from information science, but showing how those are widely applicable to everyday kinds of examples that we all come across, like someone misspells your name on your credit card, or going on a trip to the supermarket. Through that, demonstrating the power and appeal of what can be, well, there's no nice way to put this, very boring technical literature from information science to matters of everyday concern.
What has been your favorite class to teach?
You know, I've heard everyone try to answer this question. It's really kind of an impossible one. At SILS, I've taught a lot of introductory classes. So the INLS 520, which is one of the required classes for both master's degree, the introductory class in organization of information. I've also a few times taught INLS 201, the introductory class for the undergraduates. And I really do enjoy teaching these introductory classes because, and in a way, this is part of the journey that is culminating in this recent book project, trying to convey some of the complexity, but also the excitement of what the kinds of things that we can think about in information science, particularly when the way that most people write about it is, again, like, it's just super boring and makes it seem as if it only has like a very narrow purview, when actually the kinds of things that we think about in this field are from the mundane interactions that we all have like every day, looking for something to watch on Netflix, to the kinds of things that we talk about as having huge social impacts, right? And we have the concepts to be able to talk about all of those kinds of phenomena with a similar vocabulary. But, you know, in thinking about this question as Ron and Yue were answering, I was realizing that the only classes I've taught in my time at SILS are classes that I've been asked to teach that have already existed. And, you know, it's been a project to reconceptualize those. But I've never taught a class that's just been like, this is a topic that I'm personally interested in, and I'm developing a whole new class based on that, but I'm doing that in the spring for the first time. So I'm going to be really excited to, in the spring, I'm teaching a special topics class on data criticism. And I'm just starting to think about what that class is going to look like, but I'm really excited to be able to do that.
That's great. Another question, I hear you don't use any social media. Does that put you at a disadvantage as a researcher? How do you make sure that all the cool people know about your work if you're not on Twitter? Serious question. That's what the question is.
None of the cool people know about my research. Just the answer to that question. So you should tell them, whoever asked that question. Yeah, that's interesting. It's true, I don't have any social media, and I've thought at various points maybe I should have a Twitter account, or, you know, like 15 years ago, maybe I should be on Facebook for various reasons. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a principled stance entirely that has kept me from it. But partly, like, I feel like it's it's actually a really big task. Like if you're going to do something like that, you should do it well. And so I just haven't really been like, well, if I was going to do that, how should I do it? And how much time should I spend? And sort of also along the way, it's been clear how there are so many downsides to having a social media account that it's been kind of nice not to worry about how my data is being manipulated and used by other people without my consent. Nonetheless, as I said, I do have this book project, and so I have actually, it would be nice for some people to, you know, like a few, maybe one or two, to actually read my book after spending 2 years writing it. So maybe I should have some, but what? So this is, you know, I'm like, what should I, you know, like, because just because you have a Twitter account doesn't mean that anyone hears you, right?
Right, right.
Anyway, it's a conundrum. So whoever asked that question, if you want to help me figure it out, I would be more than happy to entertain suggestions.
This may be our last question, just on the interest of time today. Before pursuing information science as a scholar, you worked in the corporate world. How did that experience in the corporate world orient, motivate, or influence your approach to your scholarship?
Yes. So before going back to school to get my master's degree in information management and systems at UC Berkeley, I worked in primarily technical communication and content strategy for about 10 years. And really the whole reason I went back to school was because, especially working at internet companies in .com era San Francisco, I realized that there were a lot of people thinking that they knew how to do stuff with the creation of large-scale information systems, and no one knew anything about what they were doing. They were all just making it up by the seat of their pants. And I was like, this is wrong. And coming from a background in information structure of technical communication, I was like, I have this intuition that the way that I would structure a book, like a technical manual, is the same way that I would structure like a huge knowledge base. Is that true? Who knows about this? And so that was my motivation for my now career in information science.
Thank you very much. So that is our time for today. I want to thank you for participating. As I touched on with our other guests, if there are questions people have, can they reach out to you through the SILS contact information on our website? Is that the best way to get in touch with you?
Yes, although don't call the phone in my office because I don't think it actually works.
Yeah, this is not a good week for campus phones, so we will not highlight the phone part. But thank you, we appreciate that. So that concludes our AMA session for today, and we hope to see you again at future events.